Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. "Can I wash the dishes for a meal?" asks the homeless girl. The rich man acts. By a cold November evening, Seattle was shrouded in a light mist. Streetlights cast a diffuse yellow light across the wet sidewalks, while the fine, persistent rain drew rivers on the windows of the skyscrapers. Horns honked in the distance, the elevated subway trains rumbled above the avenues, and passers-by hurried by, bundled up in their coats, without looking at each other, absorbed in their thoughts or their phone screens. The city shone, yes, but not with warmth. Just with luxury. With smoked windows. With gleaming storefronts where the homeless were only invisible shadows. In Capitol Hill, a hot spot for the trendy bourgeoisie and office buildings, a man in a three-piece suit emerged from a glass tower. He was tall, straight, and self-assured. His graying temples gave him a natural elegance. It was Ethan Caldwell, 56, founder and CEO of Caldwell and Monroe Investments, a financial firm operating in 8 countries. In business circles, his name was synonymous with power, strategy, and coldness. His employees feared him as much as they admired him. His top-floor office hosted only essential meetings. Decisions at his place were swift, sharp, and sometimes brutal. That evening, however, he wasn't signing a contract. He had a strategic dinner with 2 Japanese investors from Tokyo, a defining moment for a new fund dedicated to artificial intelligence. His phone vibrated. He glanced quickly at the screen. "The Vespertine awaits you, Mr. Caldwell. Private room A. Your guests are on their way." He crossed the street, avoiding a puddle, adjusting the sleeves of his cashmere coat. The restaurant was right there, elegant facade, discreet logo engraved on the black marble. He was about to push open the door when a voice, almost muffled by the noise of the cars, rose to his right. "Sir, please, can I wash the dishes for one meal? Just one plate." He stopped dead in his tracks. It was weak, but clear. Not a complaint. Not a plea. A simple proposal. He turned his head. At the foot of the low wall separating the restaurant entrance from the sidewalk, a little girl stood there. She was shivering in a coat that was far too big for her, the sleeves almost covering her hands. Her bare feet stood on the icy concrete, red, covered in dirt. Her hair was matted by the drizzle. And her eyes, big brown eyes, stared at Ethan with a disarming intensity. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't begging with resignation. She stood tall, dignified. Just, desperate, but standing. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, surprised, his voice softer than he'd expected. "My name is Hope, sir. Hope Williams. I'm not a thief. I'm just hungry. But I can help, I can wash, I can sweep. Mom said you should never ask for anything for free." A shiver ran down his spine. Hope. The name hit Ethan hard. An invisible blow. He felt a lump in his throat. A memory, as vivid as a flash, flashed through his mind. Emily, his daughter, sitting one morning in her pajamas on the windowsill, a hot chocolate in her hands, saying to him, "You know, Dad, I wish all little girls had a happy name. Like Hope." Emily had died 5 years earlier. A car accident. Unexpected. Unfair. And never really overcome. Ethan took a deep breath. His suit suddenly felt heavy. The business world receded for a moment. He was no longer a CEO. He was no longer the man from Wall Street who came to conquer the West. He was a grieving father to a small, lost soul who bore, like an open wound, the name life had ripped from him. He gently knelt down to be at her eye level. "You don't have to wash anything tonight, Hope. You're coming to eat with me. Okay?" She hesitated. Blinked. As if she doubted she had heard correctly. "But I'm dirty, they won't let me in." She looked down at her feet, ashamed. Ethan saw her toes red from the cold, her nails broken, and a hole in her pants up to the knee. His heart sank even more. If anyone says a word, they'll come out. I promise you. I'm paying here. And you're my guest. He reached out his hand. A simple gesture, but immense. Hope looked at him warily, then placed her trembling fingers in his. He felt their thinness, their fragility, and their strength too. And together they walked through the door. The servers hesitated for a moment when they saw the businessman enter accompanied by a filthy and shivering little girl. One of them, visibly embarrassed, stepped forward, ready to protest. But a single look from Ethan, icy, calm and authoritative, was enough to make him back down. The man was not the type to argue when he had made a decision. Private room A, please. Without a word, they complied. A pair of glass doors were opened, leading into an elegant living room lined with dark wood and lit by a modern blown glass chandelier. A large oval table, exquisitely set, sat in the center. Plates adorned with gold leaf, silver cutlery, impeccably folded napkins, everything looked like it had come straight out of a glossy magazine. Hope stood frozen in the doorway for a moment. Her eyes widened, both amazed and nervous. She had never seen anything so beautiful. A table so large for only 2 people. A room so quiet, so warm, just for them. Ethan, attentive, gently placed his hand on her back to encourage her to move forward. She walked with small steps, almost on tiptoe, then sat down on the chair indicated to her. She stood straight as a soldier, her hands crossed on her knees, not daring to touch anything. A waiter approached discreetly. Mr. Caldwell, the 7-course tasting menu is ready. Should I bring it over? Ethan nodded, then turned to Hope. What do you want to eat, Hope? You can ask for anything. There's no limit. She shrugged shyly. I don't know, warm bread, and maybe, some chicken. Bring him roast chicken, fresh vegetables, buttered rice. And warm bread, of course. He said to the waiter. Then he added more quietly. And hot chocolate. With marshmallows. Lots of it. Hope jumped a little at that, then a thin smile crept across her face. She said nothing, but her eyes spoke for her. When the food arrived, she waited politely for Ethan to take his first bite. Then, with almost ceremonious slowness, she lifted her fork, picked up a small piece of chicken, and tasted it. She closed her eyes. The meat melted in her mouth, warm, tender, perfectly salted. She chewed slowly, as if afraid the food would disappear if she moved too quickly. It's as good as a dream. She breathed. She ate carefully, without plunging into the food, as many might have done after days of hunger. She took her time. Each bite seemed like a gift. A grace. Ethan watched her, touched without really understanding why. There was something painfully dignified about this little girl. She wasn't just hungry for food, she was hungry for respect, for security, for attention. For normalcy. And your mom? What was her name? He asked in a low voice, as they started on the next course. Hope looked up. She put down her fork, as if talking about her mother was worth stopping to eat. Her name was Angela Williams. She worked at a small cafe not far from Fremont Market. Everyone liked her. She always told me that a smile was worth more than a dollar bill. She paused, playing with the edge of her napkin. One day, she got sick. She was coughing a lot. She was losing weight. She was in pain, but she kept working. She said it would go away. Except, it was cancer. Her voice cracked slightly, but she continued. Because we didn't have insurance, they didn't want to admit her to the hospital right away. She died at our house. In our little studio. I was there. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He didn't know what to say. There was nothing to say. Nothing fair, anyway. Hope continued, in a lower voice. Afterwards, I went to a home. But it wasn't good there. Older kids were stealing my things. An adult yelled at me because I wanted to keep a photo of my mom in my pocket. I ran away. I slept near a bus station, in a cardboard box. She raised her head and locked eyes with Ethan. But I don't steal. I don't lie. I'm just hungry. And I don't want to become like those who hurt others. Ethan fought back tears. He, the man who was unshaken by anything, the investor accustomed to cold decisions and quarterly reports, was devastated. This child wasn't asking for pity. She embodied a brutal, simple, and striking truth. He took a deep breath, then asked softly. Do you have family? Someone you can call? Hope shook her head. No, sir. Just Mom. And she's in heaven now. I miss her every day. Silence. Ethan leaned forward slightly, placing his hand on the table between them. He didn't touch hers. He didn't want to rush her. You shouldn't be alone. Not like this. Hope stared at him, uncertain. She didn't yet know that evening, a simple dinner would change her life. That night, Ethan made a decision that would change 2 lives. It wasn't an impulse. It wasn't charity. It was something deeper. A fact. Ethan Caldwell, a man accustomed to multi-million-dollar decisions, contracts signed in airport lounges, and cold strategies, had just felt an inner calling that no Excel spreadsheet could have anticipated. Sitting in the car on the way home, without having attended his business dinner, he took out his phone and dialed a series of numbers he never thought he would ever use for this purpose. Karen? I need you to come to my place. Tonight. It's urgent. And personal. His lawyer, Karen Malone, who specializes in family law, was surprised by her client's unusual tone, soft, trembling, almost feverish. Then he called Miriam Lopez, a social worker known for her humanity and efficiency, whom he had met at a charity gala. Finally, he called a judge, James Whitmore, an old friend, now presiding judge of the King County Family Court. Jim. I need your help. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I know I have to do it. Hope, meanwhile, had fallen asleep in the back of the car. Her small body curled up, a heated towel draped over her legs, still clutching a piece of bread. Even in her sleep, she clutched it like a treasure. Legally, taking in an unrelated child, let alone one who had been abandoned, was no easy task. Everything had to be done properly. Ethan agreed to undergo all the necessary assessments, background checks, home visits, interviews with specialized psychologists, tax returns, and Social Security investigations. He opened his sprawling Capitol Hill home. But not as a temporary refuge, as a new home. He had a guest bedroom transformed into a nursery. Not a cliched pink princess room. No. A soft, bright room with throw pillows, stuffed animals, books, and a bed with star-patterned sheets. Hope, at first, found it hard to believe. The first night, she sat on the edge of the bed for hours, not daring to crawl under the sheets or touch anything. She didn't understand the automatic bathroom light. She jumped at the sound of the washing machine. She didn't know how to use an electric toothbrush and still brushed her teeth with her finger. And every night she cried. Silently. Curled up under her blanket, whispering her mother's name. Mom. I haven't forgotten you. I'm trying to be strong. But Ethan was there. Not intrusive. Not brutal. Just present. He knocked on her bedroom door every night. He asked. Do you want me to read something? A story maybe? Sometimes she said no. Sometimes she said yes. He started with classic tales. Then illustrated stories. She especially liked the ones with courageous heroines. She always asked. Does she have a mother? Gradually, a strange and strong bond grew between them. He didn't force her to do anything. But he opened doors for her, literally and figuratively. One day, she timidly entered his office while he was reading. What are you doing? I'm reading an investment report. What's it about? He closed the file. Do you want me to show you how money works? That day, he showed her how to read a stock index, how a stock works, and what a foundation is. She listened, fascinated. And she started drawing again. First on corners of a tablecloth. Then in notebooks Miriam gave her. She drew houses, stars, flowers, mothers and daughters holding hands. And a gray-haired man. Often seen from behind. But always there. He enrolled her in a private bilingual school, where she was initially perceived as strange and different. But her maturity impressed the teachers. She excelled in literature, expressive reading, and writing. She wrote poems. Beautiful poems. Every morning he would prepare a lunch box for her with a little note. I believe in you. Your mom would be proud. Be yourself. That's enough. She was attached to little things. Her dog, a golden retriever named Milo, whom she walked every evening. Her teddy bear, which she called Angela, in homage to her mother. Her favorite pillow, which she called the Cloud. And to Ethan. She didn't call him Dad right away. First, Mr. Caldwell. Then, Ethan. One day, while he was helping her choose a dress for back to school, she looked up and said, almost in a whisper. Do I have the right to call you Dad? Ethan felt tears well up in his eyes. He held back the tears and simply replied. You have every right in the world, Hope. It was on that day that she became his daughter, not by papers, but by heart. 10 years later. In Yale University's vast ceremony hall, the atmosphere was solemn and charged with emotion. Hundreds of students in black gowns and square caps filled the rows, a vibrant mix of nerves, excitement, and pride. Parents, friends, faculty, and media gathered to celebrate a unique moment, graduation. Under the spotlight, on the polished wooden stage, a young woman with strong features made her entrance. Her brown skin, luminous under the lights, contrasted with the black gown, while her eyes, full of determination and gratitude, scanned the crowd. That woman was Hope Caldwell. The child who, a decade earlier, had been cold and hungry and had timidly asked, Can I wash the dishes for a meal? At 19, Hope had become an accomplished, proud, and inspiring young adult. She approached the microphone with quiet confidence, and the room instantly fell silent. Cameras panned, capturing every word. I'll tell you something I've never forgotten. One evening, I was cold and hungry, and I asked to wash some dishes so I could eat. She paused, letting the silence underline her words. A man reached out. He didn't see me as a burden, a waste, or just a problem to be dealt with. He saw me as a life. A person. A murmur of emotion ran through the crowd. This man taught me that dignity isn't in what you have, but in what you give to others. He gave me more than a meal. He gave me a family, a future, unconditional love. Thank you, Dad, Ethan Caldwell. Hope's eyes welled up with tears, but her voice remained firm, filled with respect and affection. In the front row of the crowd, an elderly man with salt and pepper hair, wearing a simple but elegant suit, discreetly wiped away a tear. He was no longer the powerful CEO of old. He had sold almost all of his shares in Caldwell and Monroe Investments to found a humanitarian organization, the Hope Foundation for Dignity and Shelter. The foundation, which began when he reached out to a hungry little girl, now helps more than 2,000 homeless children each year, providing shelter, education, care and hope. The journey was immense. An unexpected transformation. Ethan Caldwell never envisioned becoming a father at 56. His life had been punctuated by meetings, balance sheets, business trips, and strategic decisions. He had built a financial empire. But that day, on a street corner, a small voice had changed his trajectory. Can I wash the dishes for a meal? It was not a simple question. It was not a call for pity. It was a call for love. And that call, that invitation to compassion, had forever transformed this ruthless businessman. He had become a father, a mentor, a protector. He had learned that true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in acts of kindness. That evening at Yale, as Hope proudly raised her diploma, it was also the celebration of a silent victory, that of a life saved, of a destiny changed by a simple act of humanity.